All right, guys, it's Dirty Rides. We're out here in the wild. We're in beautiful Texas, and it is like, it's probably 60 degrees, but god dang, it feels so good. I've been battling the cold all week. Battled the snowmageddon out in South Carolina. Then I battled the cold in Elkhart, where it snowed a bunch. And then Missouri, also cold as hell. And now I ended up in beautiful Texas. And we're here with the man that speaks his mind. It's safe to say that.
For sure.
And you build some of the baddest nitrous bikes across the country. You built the nitrous bikes. You had a hand in the compound turbo bike, right? He also tested that new Can-Am four-wheeler.
Yes, sir.
And that proved to be
It did.
pretty legit.
I think the only problem that I see with that is the transmission, the engine is together, and a lot of the racing stuff that we do, it's going to cause issues with that, because if you have a transmission failure, you're going to have a motor failure.
And so the man said it himself. This is Kevin Byrd from PATV. And tell me a little bit about what you do and how you got into this.
So it goes back. I grew up, we were poor, and Dad worked all the time, and he did the best he could to provide us what he could, but it took a lot of his time. So a lot of times when something was broke, it was fix it or go without it. And one day I went outside and just picked up the tools and started taking apart this go-kart that he'd bought me and going through the carburetor. And he came home and he's like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm trying to fix it." He's like, "Let me show you how to do this."
So you went from a go-kart to working on machines as Gamma,
Yeah.
right? So what was the transition from, like, obviously, well, I'm 33, about to turn 33. So how long have you really, like, been hands-on wrenching on this stuff?
So there used to be a motorcycle graveyard, a junkyard that was right up the street from the house. I'd go over there and pick junk out of their graveyard and fix it up, and we'd ride it around for a little while till it blew up and was unfixable, and we'd go get something else. It was 2012.
So if you're looking at a watch, that was shortly after the Prohibition.
Yeah, it was 2012. I was working for somebody else at another shop, and it was right before Mud Nats, and we got into an altercation because he had taken advantage of some customers and lied to them, changed their bill, and I told him that I can't do that. This is my hometown, because we were in Conroe, and I told him I can't do that, and he got pissed off at me and told me don't tell him how to run his business, and I said, well, I won't be here anymore. I'm out. And
So you never been a fan of, like, kicking the customer when they're down type deal?
not at all.
Because the sport is so expensive.
Oh,
like,
it is now.
I just hit 6 figures in my build. I've done everything wrong several times, and I've learned the hard way not to trust people that don't do portal stuff, like, as a whole. So for me, it was more or less like I wanted to ride against the grain, like, at home. And I didn't really have, like, a helpful hand, because the helpful hand at home was like, oh, portals, absolutely not, get that shit out of here. So you've been a realistic, more or less like a for the people kind of guy.
Always.
Since you got in the game.
Always. And it's, I've rubbed some companies the wrong way because they copied somebody's product, and I always stood behind the person that invented it.
Yeah.
Because let's think about it this way. So you got a cheap knockoff. I sell the cheap knockoff. I'm going to make some money. I sell the real thing. I'm going to make some money, right? But it goes back a little bit further than that. In specific, Daniel Turner and his reverse chain. Somebody came to me and asked me to get a copy of it, go get his chain and bring it to them. And I told him, fuck you.
So is that the reverse chain in the transmission,
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
The very first Razor reverse chain that he.
I'm not going to lie to you. I'm pretty dumb with this shit. Like, I only been in the game since COVID. So whatever, like, I'm taking knowledge from you as we stand here and bullshit for a couple of minutes in the middle of a Defender build. So go on.
And I told him absolutely not. I called Daniel and told Daniel I need to talk to you. He's like, yeah, sure, what's up? And I told him what was up, and he's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I said, I'm not going to be part of that, and I don't want anything to do with it. You designed this. This is your part. But if you look at it even outside of being a friend with him, what happens if you cut off the people who design everything and come up with the ideas? If you cut them out, then there's not going to be no new innovation.
Yeah, because if you get stolen from, which that was what occurred, what you're talking about, if you get stolen from, your ideas and your lack of creativity will start to flow. Because like now for me in content creation, I feel the same way. Like when I'm stressed out at work, when I'm on the road 7 days a week, almost all the time. And so for me, it's like when I'm stressed out and I'm tripping because, work isn't going my way or whatever, the content creation, it gets a chokehold really, because it's like, no matter how hard you work, it just doesn't seem to be enough. So I can only assume that, doing something like that and getting your shit stolen from you, you'd be like, well, fuck it, I'm just done with it.
Yep.
And then you flatline basically because there's nothing else to achieve.
Right. So, that just one thing to me about the whole industry is loyalty. Be loyal to those who are loyal to you. There's always going to be that person that's not loyal, and there's always going to be that person that jumps from person to person to person trying to get the best deal or whatever they can. But you're always loyal to the people who are loyal to you.
Yeah, and I've learned the hard way. I worked with a lot of shops. Well, I can't say a lot. I've worked with a couple of shops that were like, oh, well, drop us off your razor and we'll figure it out, or we'll do it the hard way. We'll charge you accordingly, and good luck with your build. And that's, ultimately how I found Triage Garage. Shout out to them. And, so I understand what you're saying 100%, because if you're constantly just taking it with no lube, really, eventually you're going to get pushed out of a sport.
Yep.
A sport that you fall in love with, but you take it enough times and you're like, man, my ass hurts a little bit. And,
for sure.
You're out, so
sure.
I understand what you're saying with, working for somebody who just constantly takes advantage. And unfortunately in trucking, I've been doing this 10 years, and that's how I ended up 4 years down the road. Me and my old lady, we both worked for the same guy, and he just kept on, no lube, no spit, nothing. He just was giving it to his employees. And finally, after some shit had happened, luckily it happened the way it did, which forced me to realize that I don't want to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, and so that's what happened in that situation, and that made me step out on my own.
Yeah.
And I did really well for a while. I brought the Juggernaut tire out, which changed a lot of things in the industry. It pissed off a lot of people.
So how big was the Juggernaut, and what time frame was this?
So the Juggernaut was approximately I think it dropped in 2014 or 2015. It was a 32-inch tire, and it dropped a 37-inch tire, which at the time was substantial.
So now as the world turns, we're standing here with, these wheels, guys, are huge. They're what, 30s?
30s.
30-inch wheel on what size tire is
probably
this?
63 to 65, something like that, 66.
So 30 more inches of rubber. And these things probably aren't light.
No, they're
by any
definitely
means.
not light by no
So,
stretch of the means.
In such a short time, realistically, when you look at the evolution of things and seeing the tires go from, a 32 or a 37 was a big tire, and now we're looking at, chunks of rubber that belong on tractors, realistically.
For sure. I think a lot of that had to do with the bounty hole stuff. Whenever it kicked off, everybody was riding on, I want to say probably around a 40 was the biggest tire you've seen. You might have seen a 42 or 44. And then the bounty hole stuff started, and everybody just started pushing and pushing and pushing because the holes were getting deeper and nastier. And so you required a larger tire to get through it. And so it pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And the industry as a whole, the parts weren't available and weren't ready. So everybody started innovating and making new parts and new stuff and new axle designs and
new axle quality, really.
Yeah.
I run a Rhino 2.0. I'm guilty. I buy super ATV axles, but seeing these meets, right? Like, you're looking at a 32, which would probably be,
there.
this tall. And now you're looking at something like this. You could just see how much the game has changed.
Yes.
And what do you think? Like, I know you brought up the bounty hole racing a little bit, but was it strictly bounty hole racing that brought it? Or were people pushing the issue on trail bikes and...
So a lot of the show bikes were pushing the issue, but they didn't get ridden. So they didn't
parking
push,
lot princesses.
So they didn't push They didn't push the products as hard as it was.
Right.
But the bounty hole thing, I really think, is what brought everything to a head, because everybody was trying to get bigger. And then you go to a park and nobody's seen a bike this big. Everybody there wants one like that. So then they go to the shop and they're like, hey, I want that. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to build you that, but it's not really for trail riding. And they found all the weak links in the parts, and the people who are manufacturing the parts just figured out a way to make them stronger, better quality. And so we've seen that larger tires ended up on the trail.
Yeah, because, I mean, when I pulled up to Nats last year, I'm guilty. You know, first year at Nats, and the folks that I rode with from Louisiana, my machine's almost 90 inches wide before I went with the wide tire. And the folks from Louisiana was like, God dang, this is a big bike, you know, because it was so wide. And it just sat, at the time, I thought it sat perfect until I started getting into a bigger tire. And then the more people you talk to, it's like, well, a 40 really isn't going to cut it here, 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 here. But good luck at home. And at home, you know, like a 44, in my opinion, is almost the perfect tire because you can get through anything and it's still fun. I think if I make the jump from a 44 to a 50, then local parks become less fun. And being in Kentucky, you know, we don't have the riding style you guys do here in Texas. And
most places here, if you know how to ride, other than some really, really, really deep holes that just are bottomless, a 44 to a 46 is going to get you where you need to be.
So do you feel like the ag tire style, right, V-treads, do you feel like that's the only way to go, or do you think like a 400 you think is good enough?
It depends on what you're doing. So I had on the Defender, before I wrapped it and swapped out the tires on it, I had some BKTs on there. They were stretched onto a 12 wide wheel. They looked really, really good, huge deep dish, but they rode like utter shit. I mean, terrible. They would knock your teeth out if you weren't riding in the mud. It was horrible. We drove down to the store. Never again. I ain't driving the store. I put the Moto Slayers on there. Hell, when it snowed, we rode 60, 80 miles on the street, and it felt like driving a car down the road.
That's right. He did say when it snowed, and we are here in Texas, and we're damn near in the Gulf of America, and shout out Donald Trump, but it snowed here in Texas. So that's crazy in its own rights. I mean, really, like, I've been driving 10 years.
It was about 8.5 inches.
Is that
9 inches of snow?
So you've lived in this area your whole life, right?
I was mainly from the Houston area.
How many times have you seen snow down here?
Real
like
snow?
Like serious snow?
No. I mean, I've seen a lot of ice, but not a lot of snow. I think I can remember in my lifetime maybe 3 times that it snowed, and it may be 3 inches. So that 8.5 inches was...
Was it crazy down here?
The day of the snow, a little bit. The next day, when some of it had melted and then iced back over, it was really crazy around.
Yeah, because I think I seen the PATV was shut down for 2 days,
yep,
right?
2 days.
Because of the snow.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, how did you end up at PATV? Was it just like you liked what they were doing and you got on board, or was it more or less like they found you and you found your home?
I started helping them with the race team, and I started getting real close with Brent, and which is crazy. If you knew anything about me and Brent 10 years ago, we absolutely hated each other. We were in such competition, like we literally hated each other. We wouldn't stand in the same room for more than 5 minutes.
Dang. And now y'all work together.
Yeah, now we're friends. It's crazy. So I started helping them with their race team. If you go back and you remember AJ Skimmon, that was the motor and the tuning that I did, the clutching all set up. But move forward, they were getting there, but not quite there. So they asked me to help them. I got them all their bikes doing what they were supposed to. I had gotten word that they were selling the property that I was renting for my shop. And they didn't tell me until like 30 days before they wanted me out. And so I had to move, and I had a huge shop, and I mean, I probably had 120 units there.
Wow.
And some of them were scrap junk ready to be gotten rid of, but most of them were actual jobs. And they told me, you gotta go. And I'm like, what the fuck do I do now? And Richie's been telling me, he's like, Kevin, I've been trying to get you to come work for me, come on. He said, I'm tired of watching you work yourself to death. He's like, you work literally 24 hours a day sometimes. He's like, you're going to kill yourself. He said, so stop that shit, come to work 9 to 5. And I took that as a sign, and I packed up and moved.
So when you make an adjustment like that, was it like, were you guys butting heads a lot because you're used to being your own boss?
Not really him. And there's no real button heads, but I am a certain way, and I've always been this way. I worked for the school district, not for the school district, the county for a little while, and I had to get up early in the morning. I'm not a morning person. I never have been, never will be.
I hear you, man.
And in the morning, I'm angry, agitated, and it takes me a little while to get moving. But once I get moving, I'll stay moving till however late, I don't care. And so it was a major adjustment for me to get there. And Richie's like, Kevin, you got to be here at this time. And I'm like, I'm trying. He's like, Kevin, get your shit together and be here at this time. And so that was the major adjustment, was being able to get there on that time. Other than that, he takes good care of me.
That's what's up. When you go from, like, I am working for myself, and I'm like you, I'm working myself to the ragged edge every day of the week. But, like in the transport industry, there's nobody that wants to see you work that hard that will pay it worth the fuck. And so that's why, like, I will struggle it out until I have a fucking massive heart attack and I crash this motherfucker. Like, I don't ever foresee me getting back into, like, a company rig. So, like, with the racing industry, where do you feel like that's taken off since COVID?
So COVID hit and everything was on shutdown, and the only things that people had to do were really go outside, go on hikes, go to national parks, but even some of the national parks weren't even open.
Right.
But mud parks were. So a lot of new people that weren't into the industry or had never owned a unit were trying to get units. And at the beginning of COVID, if you remember, they were trying to get rid of everything. Everything was on sale. They would finance anybody for anything. They would give it to you.
Shit, that's how I ended up in this community, really. Like, me and my old lady, we were just, before that, we were going to the drag strip a lot. And then COVID hit, and they shut it down pretty much for a while. And I was like, man, I need to get up out of the house, and I need to go do something. So that's how I ended up in this community. And then I found out that the off-road community, as long as you're a good person, for the most part, has been very stand-up. Like, you meet very honest, hard-working people that work tooth and fucking nail just to party on the weekends. And then that's how you get machines like this. Like, I would have never met half the people that I consider friends now if I wouldn't have gotten into the industry. And so for that, I'm grateful, and all of you guys at home watching. And if you are watching and you haven't liked and subscribed, make sure to do that. But, I've gotten to meet so many good people, and I'm grateful for it, really. But in the last, COVID happened almost 5 years ago now. When COVID first hit, what would be considered like a competitive bounty bike? Like, was it
was
COVID
50.
hit and it was already like 60s or plus?
Most everybody was rocking a 50.
And COVID?
Somewhere around a 50, 46 to a 50. You may have seen a couple of 52s, maybe a couple of 56s, but they were few and far between. Almost everybody was on a 46 to a 50.
And for me, I feel like that's already changed drastically, because a 50 back then, like, I was new to the game. I didn't do the whole mud riding thing. A 50 was just, there was no way. Local trails, when I lived in Wisconsin, would definitely not allow a 50. So it brought me to other places to ride, because even at a 32 on offset wheel, they were already, scrubbing as I'd go through gates, because in Wisconsin they have gates and, all kinds of weird shit to bring the size of the machine down.
Right.
And now that we advance in the off-road community, you just see machines getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Where do you think the sport will end up in the next 5 years?
You're going to see a few large machines, but I've already noticed a trend that a lot of people are backing down the tire size a little bit.
Really?
To go back to a 50 from a 56, 58. 50 right now is probably the best size tire because you can ride pretty much anywhere. It'll get you anywhere you want to go, and the available parts that will hold up to a 50 are all there.
So you see these guys that are out, now no disrespect on Super ATV, but we'll just use them. The guys that are out here on Super ATV A-arms, upper and lower, that are out giving hell, on a 46. Do you think that budget kind of ropes people in, or do you think that people just push parts to the absolute maximum and then cry when it breaks?
So realistically, companies have to fill the void at different budgets. So everybody has their budget lift or their budget this or their budget that. The product is not going to be as good, but I will tell you this, Super ATV has a warranty that they stand behind.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the best warranties in the company.
Yeah, like I run just a 3-inch lift because I'm long travel, so I didn't feel like I needed to get a custom lift and do everything that it takes to hold those parts. Do you feel that the availability to run a 50-inch tire, like parts availability, do you think that's obtainable for like the average 9 to 5? Or do you feel like running a 50 is just like top tier, good luck?
Not really. I think anybody who saves up a little bit of money, they can put a 50 on their bike. Now, if it's an ATV, it's a little bit different story because the parts from the ATVs are not quite as strong or available, and most of the stuff to run a 50 is going to be something custom built, so it's going to add a substantial cost to everything. But I think in a side-by-side, yeah, pretty much anybody can put together and run a 50.
So do you feel like, I know there's people out there that are like firm believers, if you hit a 50, you need ball joint delete, hydro steering. Do you feel that the parts that come equipped on a bike now, do you think that like you can get away with it in a budget build on a 50?
You can up to a certain point, but you're going to have to stay on top of maintenance and check for loose or broken stuff all the time, because if you don't, it's going to leave you with a broken ball joint or something else.
So, out of curiosity, and curiosity kills the cat, how many times have you been stranded till, let's say, sun comes up? Your personal bike, not you helping somebody. And have you always been on top of your maintenance?
Generally, yes. Let's see. I got stranded at Mud Nats 2014 because I was, let's just say, tons and tons of moonshine. And
them cold snacks those are always a time ruiner.
I cross-rutted a rut, and so I was up against a wall. And I was waiting on my buddy, and for some reason, I passed out with my foot on the throttle. And so I was up against the hill like this, and it broke the front axles.
Yeah.
And it just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until it just destroyed the whole front end. So that's one. I was in the woods. Everybody went back to camp, and they were going to come get me in the morning because they couldn't get me out of the bike because I was down in the hole. And they're just like, all right, bro, you're good.
Wow.
And I remember I'd climbed out of the bike. Sun came up, and Ricky Bobby from up there, Dallas-Fort Worth area, he came through and he's like, "Are you all right?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Let me get you something." So he handed me 2 of the Uncrustables and a water. He's like, "Here, bro, you look like you need this," and I did for sure. So that's one. River Run, when I had the Mega, and it was on the small tires. Ripped the Heim joint out of the cradle. Ended up piecing it back together so I could get it on the trailer, but I was there for a while. Another time I was in the Mega and I was at General Sam's, and this was when it was big on the 84s. I was climbing
84-inch tires?
Yeah, 84-inch tires.
Shoo. So how far is the bottom, or how far is it from the ground to the bottom of the floorboards, you think?
Probably 7 foot. Maybe a little taller, but
so that's a serious rig.
Oh, yeah.
You bring that thing out just for show and tell, or
no? I ride it.
You ride it,
I
huh?
ride it. Yeah, I ride the absolute.
Jeez, how wide are them 84s?
They're 36 inches wide.
So if you ever get buried in a rut, that the rut is 4 foot fucking wide, it was probably old Kevin out there tearing up the place.
It really doesn't make ruts. It floats on top of the water and the mud. I mean, it has a really light footprint for the most part. There are some times when it's really, really nasty and it's crusted over, it will bite through it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was terrible. We were crawling up the hill and a heim joint ripped out of the top hat on the forelink, and
Right.
It just sat down like this.
Dang.
So we had to winch it up and replace the heim and rig it back together so we could get back to camp. But it's the only time that I really had to stay out in the woods all night long that I can remember is at Mud Nats that year. Most of the time it was out there late fixing it to get out of the woods.
But you made it out before the sun came up?
Yeah, but that time at Mud Nats was terrible. It was terrible. I think I had a hangover for a week after that.
Your check liver light was flashing for a couple
sure,
days?
For sure.
So you guys live down here in the great state of Texas. What are your top 3 parks?
In Texas?
For the folks that, like, they haven't traveled because they're, like, whether it's cabin availability or whatever, like, what would you say the top 3 parks here in Texas are?
So there's quite a few parks. The bigger ones are Sabine, Extreme, and River Run.
How is Extreme? Because I was looking to go to that.
Extreme is a little wild sometimes.
I was looking at going to the that Mexican OT is going to be there for Mardi Gras,
Yeah.
and I was thinking about pulling up, but I'm looking for a back seat. So if you're watching this, holler at me if you got a back seat.
The Extreme is a good time. I mean, that park has been around since the beginning of mudding.
Yeah, I always see the videos of them going underneath. Is that the freeway that goes up over?
90.
Yeah.
So that park actually used to be 2 parks. Used to be actually 3 technically. Used to be Fat Man's, Melanie's, and DSO, which was across the street. Now it's all 3 combined.
Dang.
But I mean, I can remember riding back there in 2003.
So you've been in the game for a while.
Yeah.
What is the coolest experience that you've gotten to have because of the off-road community? Like, this is your life. Like, there's no work-life balance. You know, that's usually one of my top questions is what's a work-life balance? But I mean, it's Saturday. It's like 4 o'clock, I think. And when I pulled up, y'all were wrenching on your Defender. So obviously the work-life balance is kind of crazy. But what is the coolest experience that you've gotten to have because of the off-road community? Is it racing hammers, the bounty hole stuff?
Yeah,
Do you do the bounty course stuff or no?
I did one time. There's a video of the Mega doing the bounty course thing, and then after that, he disqualified the Megas from ever running again. So,
But we'll leave that for another time.
yes.
But like,
I mean, I've met a lot of musical artists. I've met a lot of really cool people. I got to race King of Hammers. I've flown to all kinds of events all over the United States. I mean, there's so many different things. It's hard to narrow it down to one single thing. It's just so much stuff, and it's not really a job anymore. Like you said, it's a lifestyle.
yeah,
And so it's something that I do every day, and every day it seems like every day there's something new, something cool, something that happens. So it's hard to pick out one single thing.
I can understand that for sure, because it's like every time you turn the corner and think you're going to experience something different, it's like, man, this really tops this, and this tops this, and then you just keep working up that chain, and you know, it provides the lifestyle that we live. What I feel like is a never-ending adrenaline rush.
Pretty much, yes. And I had problems with that when I was younger. I used to run from the police on motorcycles or whatever else just for the rush.
You were getting after it, huh?
Yes.
So do you feel like your younger days have led you into I mean, I would say you're pretty calm compared to some of the other acts that we see, you know, in the off-road community, which, you know, no disrespect to anybody that's out here doing the thing, but, you know, like, you seem very realistic. Like, perfect example, if you notice that there's an issue, especially in the community, you take it with a head-on approach. But when you take it with the head-on approach, you come with the paperwork.
Yep.
Is that like in your younger days, was that something that you just realized like that's who you're going to be and then you just ran with it and people loved you for it? Or
yeah, I was always kind of the person that I'm quiet until I have everything in front of me and then I speak up. It's just the way I've always been since I was a kid or whatever. But I made some poor life choices that put me in some certain types of situations that made me think slightly differently than I used to. And so those situations gave me the ability to see through a lot of bullshit. And so when I see bullshit, I make sure it's bullshit and then I call it bullshit.
Yeah. I think that, humans in general are very guilty of, especially now with social media, being able to hide.
I agree.
And the more and more that people hide, they feel that they can get away with a little bit here and a little bit there until it becomes just a complete blowout.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you would think with social media, it would make people, you would know who a person is because of social media, but it's come to the point to where the person that they are on there is not the person that they are in real life.
Right.
And so a lot of times people who don't have the best intentions, they will portray a certain way online and then use that to their advantage to take advantage of certain people.
Yeah. And I will say that a majority of the folks that I've met, but when you look at I can't say the majority of folks in general, because I haven't been around that long. I haven't gotten to meet everybody, but I met some really stand-up people that like, I'm here at your shop and we've been bullshitting half the day and we've just been hanging out, and you're the same person you are on the internet as you are standing here bullshitting. And like even like that interaction I've had with a couple of other people, but then you always got to watch out for those people that are taking the roundabout way to do for themselves. And so I do agree with you in a lot of the situations, because it's not so much a industry problem or an off-road industry problem, it's just a people problem in general. And honestly, I think that the internet has gotten people so used to being able to hide behind the screen that it forgets that you can still get punched in the mouth.
Oh, I seen some things at OPE, which we won't go into, but I've seen some people acting an ass and they got put in their place.
Yeah.
And this time it wasn't me. I was actually good this year at OPE.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I ran into you at the bar, at the hotel, and then I think I had seen you at the after party at Big Chill, and you were chill. Like the way that we're here talking bullshit on camera, like this is what we were doing.
Yeah, that's because Thursday I got a little too wild, and
Thursday night was crazy. I was so fed up with it before I even pulled in, because I worked so much to get there. And if you were not watching the weather or you had a blackout at home, I mean, the weather was absolutely terrible. But I will give it to Shane and his crew at the Off-Road Product Expo. They really tried to hold it together for us.
They did a really good job.
And I think that they really pulled out like all the stops to battle, the fucking food crisis on Friday. I mean, there wasn't a restaurant open. You couldn't get a hold of Domino's. They unplugged their phones, and everybody was just, to the point of leaving. But Shane and them, they really kept everybody together.
We did manage to find a Waffle House, the cleanest Waffle House I've ever been in, and I was scared.
So I got a rule. If you pull into a Waffle House and somebody ain't missing a whole bunch of teeth, or the cook ain't singing, I don't eat.
That's what I thought too. But we were hungry, and it was like 3 a.m., and the food was amazing.
Really?
It was the best Waffle House I've ever had in my life.
They really knew what they were doing,
and I was like, wait, this place is clean. What's wrong with this place?
Yeah, you go into some of them Waffle Houses, like I'm on the road so much that like I'll pull in and I'll be like, all right, cool. I'll walk in and it's like you open the bathroom door and you damn near want to get in the truck and leave, because it's like, I don't know how the hell y'all cook food in this place. Yeah. But you're about to load out and go to King of the Hammers.
Yes, sir.
what gives you more of that adrenaline rush? Is it because you race, right? Or do you just tune now?
I tune and I race some.
So would you say like doing that over hammers? If you had to pick one, we're scheduling a big bounty race one weekend and your King of the Hammers is the same weekend. What are you choosing?
Hammers is once a year, so that's where I'm going.
Yeah?
But in all honesty, it's a totally different feeling. And this is going to sound really weird. But anytime I've ever won or been on the podium, I don't like it. And I know this sounds stupid, but I don't like it.
Really?
I know it sounds stupid. I would rather see somebody that I helped on the podium than me. I know that sounds really stupid.
It's like an act, I guess it ain't even an act. It's a gift of helping somebody along the way rather than doing something you've already done or have the capability of doing, maybe?
I guess. I don't know. I've been like that since I was young, too. I'd rather watch somebody else succeed. It's just strange. I don't know why.
So, with all the racing series, like, I don't know if you keep up with King of the Deep because that's more East Coast stuff. But I will say, PATV, you guys have so many machines that compete all over the country, from little tires to big tires. Shout out Winter Racing. Their link will be in the comments below too. And that was all the way in South Carolina. Have you gotten to experience a lot of the other racing series out there? Because
we have. Last year we traveled a lot. I mean, a lot. And the year before that, we traveled a lot. I mean, it was, if there was a series and an event and it was something that we could possibly make it to, we went. We did go to Busco, and I had an absolute blast there.
I heard Busco gets, here's the hand, and you're looking over there in the field because it's that far out of hand.
Yeah. So
would you say that party was like?
It was a great time, and it was a big party, and we had a blast. There was no, I didn't see any arguing or fighting or no stupid shit. I mean, you have your regular shit that you're gonna have, but no nothing crazy. But we had a lot of fun. I really hate that we were supposed to plan another trip up there and see if we could get the Mega up there.
Yeah, that would be crazy. I think their spring one's called like Mud Bash, and then you have Fall Bash. I definitely want to go check it out. That's been on my bucket list.
Have you been to Rednecks?
No. My issue, and I've talked about this in Emma's podcast with Winter Racing, but my issue is like when I travel, I don't necessarily like going somewhere where I don't know anybody. And then the year that we had the availability to go to Paychecks, the filming was happening, and like I kick it with them in real life, like some of them, not all, but I didn't want to go to Paychecks with the expectance to trail ride and mud ride, and then something happen and not have anybody.
Yeah, there's not a lot of trail riding there. There are some serious pits, and when I say serious pits, there's some big nasty pits.
So like somebody for me on a smaller tire, because I mean you look at these and you watch all the videos from Paychecks, and it looks like if you're not on a 50, don't bother even taking your machine. You just find other people to go with.
There is plenty of places to ride around and events to watch, and I mean it's more than what you see on the internet.
So is it more or less like a spectator event?
There is a lot of spectating, a lot. So you can take a stock machine, ride around, get anywhere that you want to go on the whole property. There's plenty of stuff to watch. There's food, there's games, there's concerts. I mean, it's...
I really wanted to go see this was before I had even bought a side-by-side. I had seen the video of their Barbie Jeep downhill race.
Oh, that is...
Is it as gnarly in person as it looks on the internet, or is it a lot of like bullshitting around?
Oh no, it's what you see on the internet for the downhill is that. It is exactly that. It is terrible.
I really like, I'm an internet watcher, like I drive so much that I haven't gotten to go, but I like the idea behind the freestyle pit.
The freestyle pit this year was pretty cool because it was a large pit. It was a new pit, but it was a large pit, but they did reopen some more of the property that they had lost.
So like Paychecks, Busco, Nats, all these nationwide events that literally like Sabine, if you have a stock bike on like 29s, you could still get around and have an absolute banger of a time.
There's, I mean, the Defender, when it was stock, I used to take it there and ride it.
So there's two parts of this question. What is the absolute craziest party? Would you say like Paychex is untouchable? Or would you say that there's a different part, like...
I mean, it depends on what part of the country you're in. You got Redneck Yacht Club.
Well, if I was going to take one trip anywhere in the country, what is the craziest party but had the most activities where you actually get to ride around in between the events?
If you're wanting to ride, then it's not going to be Rednecks, because Rednecks, like I said, is a lot of
spectator
spectators.
event.
Yeah. I mean, there are places to ride, but it's not anything that, like you would be used to. So if that's the case, then that takes Rednecks out of the equation. Redneck Yacht Club, same thing. It takes that out of the equation.
That's down in Florida,
Yep,
right?
in Florida. And it does get wild down there, buddy.
Yeah?
Yes.
So Paychex and Yacht Club pretty much the same, just two different areas?
Yeah. Rednecks is a little wilder because you can be all night, all day. They don't care.
Because they have I hate to keep bringing up Paychex, but, you know, I watch Uncle Packy. Shout out to him. And if you want to get on a podcast, holler at me. But I seen that they have a party, I think it's Party Alley at Paychex.
It's Titty Row.
Titty Row, that's what it is. I couldn't remember what he had called it, if it was Party Alley.
Yeah, it's Titty Row.
I've
And
heard
it's like,
Titty
it's
Row.
like taking a float down Mardi Gras.
Really?
Yes.
I want to make it down here for Mardi Gras,
I mean,
too.
I have seen some crazy shit. I remember one year we were there, and there was this girl on top of this, I'm not going to say the company that she was with.
Right.
But it was an energy drink company. And she was on top of this razor, and she was just getting fucking pissed.
Oh, no.
I mean, and I'm just like, wait.
Don't you represent that other company? So, like...
Oh, no, it was the whole company. It was their...
Oh,
yes.
they were all out there, huh?
They were in from Vegas and having a good old time.
You know what, though? Sometimes you just need that relaxation moment before you get the whole thing, huh?
So that kind of brings me up to something else. I know I'm skirting your question right now, but Mud Nats, the original Mud Nats.
That was at...
damn.
You got to help me out
Mud
here.
Creek.
Mud Creek.
Yeah. So that one, the original, it used to get wild at the sand pit. When I see wild, but you got to understand, there were no cell phones to take pictures. There was none of this other stuff. There was no social media like that.
That was going to be one of my next questions.
So that kind of slowed down some of the things that you would see. A lot of people that would get wild, they toned it down because of all the stuff that gets posted, or all the stuff that gets posted all over the place. You know, Rednecks, they post some stuff, but it's kind of...
It's like the G-rated version?
Yeah, and then there will be private groups that post up the other stuff. But it's not the same as, like...
Let's say 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 years ago, very seldom you would see somebody getting shit talked on the internet because they were doing something wild.
Yeah.
Because they really... And 10 years ago, there were still cell phones, but they weren't quite like they are now. But if you go back even further than that, let's say 99, 2000, 2001, 2003.
That was way before my time. I was still in like the 5th grade.
Yeah, so back then, there were no cell phones.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that was doing, you would be carrying around a giant camcorder. People would know you were recording, you know.
And then they knew not to either hang out or do whatever they were going to do.
And generally, as common courtesy, even after cell phones became available, hey, this is this type of party, no cell phones.
So check it out. Unfortunately, that's where part 1 ended. I'm a jackass. I didn't charge my phone, so the phone died. If you want to see more of Kevin Byrd, drop it in the comments, drop a subscribe, drop it a like. Be on the lookout for his new podcast, and stay tuned because there's a lot more coming. You guys, we are just now hitting the tip of this iceberg, and the support has been crazy. I can't thank everybody enough, and make sure to stay tuned. Sundays and Wednesdays, we're dropping them at noon. Catch who's next.